Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mike's, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com. You can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I'm Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Hello, everybody.
Ruben Bressler.
Greetings. How's it going?
Greetings and salutations. It is wonderful. We got to record this week. A little food poisoning.
Yeah.
Knocked us off track, but we're back.
It's ironic that we're talking about a food set and then somebody misses the show due to food poisoning.
It's true.
Yep, you weren't supposed to eat that soup. That's what the
Right.
fell in that.
You ate the wrong pie.
Wow.
That's
there
right.
you go. Baked you right in. Well, we begin with our choice of the top comment from last week in the segment we call Honourable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who the most elegant and letting us know what card we did not choose is one of our top 10 promo cards. Ruben?
Seto Kaiba is going to be our winner this week from the YouTube channel. Please give us a follow over there on the YouTube. My favorite promo art is still the extended art Doran that you can only get from a Judge program. I think that you could get it a different way. I actually don't remember how you could get it, but it was a very rare promo. You can totally see all that trunk in the junk.
This was a Judge promo by Rob Alexander.
Yep.
Super cool, colorful. It does say the Judge program from 2017 is where this originally showed up. Not that expensive these days. The extended art one, which I think we actually did mention in the show, it's like $200 something, and this one's like 10. So it's affordable and it's gorgeous. It's fantastic.
I love this. I love that new art. Yeah.
I always have had a great appreciation for extended art trunks. So,
wow.
Junks and trunks on Magic cards. Got it. Well, congratulations on that. Thanks for participating in the show. Please contact Erin before she blocks you on all the social medias.
I'm thinking about it. I'm strongly considering it.
Right now. Yeah. Bob Ross was out, y'all. Out.
Did you know there's a young man, there's a boxer. He's either a boxer or an ultimate fighter. His nickname is Violent Bob Ross because he has like the hair.
Got the fro?
That's awesome.
He is not blocked.
I see. We see how it is. We see. All right. Well,
wow, that's fantastic.
This week we're going to talk about Throne of Eldraine, the brand new set's been out for a couple weeks now. I think technically a week, right? It came out on like the 6th or 7th,
something like that,
officially or whatever. But it's been rocking Magic Online, rocking Magic Arena. We have a Mythic Championship as
ruining
of the recording,
formats,
wrecking some formats. We are seeing the power level has been cranked and cranked and cranked. And we're going to get into some of that today. But let's go ahead and get started with our number 10. Ruben, do you have a number 10?
I do, and I share it with someone.
Oh, that's weird how that worked out.
Who do I share it with?
You share it with me.
Oh, okay. See, you buried the lead there.
Okay. I wanted to make
this
sure.
This might be our first number 10 share in the history of the top 10.
Yeah, Evan doesn't normally have 10s that he shares or has higher. So
wow. Well, all I know is I wanted to make sure that I included this card in particular because it is in the set, but it's kind of not in the set, but it's an incredibly important card. Like this is going to be a card that is going to impact Magic for years and years and years.
And that's why I wanted to put it at 10 also. And I think why we both put it at exactly number 10.
Right. Go ahead, Ruben. Tell them what it is.
Number 10, Arcane Signet is in Throne of Eldraine. It's a 2 colorless mana artifact. It's a common, whatever that means for Arcane Signet, because it's in all the Brawl decks as opposed to in packs. Tap, add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. Probably the second best mana rock available in commander formats and singleton formats, save for Sol Ring.
Yeah, this is your optimal turn 1 in Commander is turn 1 Sol Ring Signet go. That's as good as it gets, basically. And this card is common in that they put 1 in every single Brawl deck, but then they hilariously underprinted the Brawl decks. So this card was $25. It's gone down to just $10 for that common for you. But again, this to me is a card that now every single time Wizards needs to juice a commander thing just a little bit, they just throw this thing in there and bam, you're good. It's just like Sol Ring will always be worth money. This thing is going to always be worth money. And it's going to impact Magic for years and years to come.
Yeah.
So that was me on that one. Aaron, what's number 10?
My number 10 is a card that really, really impressed me during the early access event. A lot of the cards I'm going to talk about I saw during the early access event, and usually I was on the other side of them, but there were a couple that I was on, the right side of, and they felt really good. And so, there's been a lot of talk lately. It kind of peaked around War of the Spark in terms of planeswalkers, where, there's so many of them. They've been out for so long. How many ways can you really do a planeswalker? You have static abilities, and that's fine, but, some people were honestly calling for planeswalkers to be dialed down a little bit or possibly even made to go away after War of the Spark. And so I was really glad to see this card. I thought it was a really unique take on planeswalkers, and specifically a really great way to deal with loyalty, and also just the really welcome return of a popular character. My number 10 is Garruk, Cursed Huntsman. So Garruk is 4 colorless, a black and a green legendary planeswalker with 5 starting loyalty. Does not have a plus as we know it. It has a 0. You can create 2/2/2 black and green wolf creature tokens with, when this creature dies, put a loyalty counter on each Garruk you control. So if you're running multiple Garruks, they all get loyalty, but the wolves have to die. Like, that's so weird. You can -3 to destroy a creature, draw a card. That's value, very much what a Golgari green-black rock style of deck wants to be doing, killing things, getting value, being very grindy. And it has a -6 if you get an emblem with creatures you control, get +3/+3 and trample. Kind of a callback to the original Garruk that allowed you to do that as well. So I think the art is great. I love the unique way to level it up. Obviously you do have to deal with the wolves. Otherwise he will just kind of grind you out, as I found when we were doing the early access event. So he gives you the ability to grind a game out. And this is just a very black-green planeswalker, and I love it.
I played against the Abzan wolf deck, which sort of tops out with Garruk, but also has Tolsimir, friend of wolves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when they get when it just starts going, it just gets insane, and they just kill everything you have. And if a wolf dies, Garruk gets bigger, which is insane because then they have the overrun emblem. Oh God, which you're just going to lose shortly thereafter. And 0 to make 2 creatures
is insane.
Is nuts. Is fantastic. Once you get this guy, it's almost game over. Do you have an answer for Garruk, or this game is done? That's all.
Yeah, you'll either lose to wolves, or he'll kill all your things, or there's an inevitability there that I really appreciate.
Destroy target creature, draw a card. It's just
really good.
Sweet.
People early on were comparing this to Vraska Relic Seeker in terms of power level, which was the top end card du jour of those 3-color Golgari based decks that were running rampant in Standard.
Well, also
kind of played
Sunstream.
Similarly. Yeah, I think you can play it the same way in that, no one was running 4 copies of the Relic Seeker. That was like your one of sideboard card that when you brought it in, people just couldn't deal with. And so I think it fits into that role very nicely of, you don't want to run more than 2 maybe, but when it comes, it does exactly what it needs to do.
And it's really sweet, and it's powerful, and it's Garruk back, and it calls back to his first version, which is great. And
noticeably absent from War of the Spark. Right. Everyone was saying, "Where's Garruk?" And it was so great.
I saw that guy in the preview video.
There you go. All right, so let's move on here to number 9. Speaking of planeswalkers, this one is, at least as of this recording, starting to catch a little bit of fire. It's currently sort of on the DL. People aren't really sort of sure what the right shell is, but you can't deny that a 3-mana planeswalker that goes to 6 loyalty through either of its first abilities, which means it has 2 pluses and then later a minus that is still fantastic. The Royal Scions are awesome. And it is a red, a blue, and a generic mana. The first planeswalker with 2 planeswalkers on it. So it is a legendary planeswalker, Will Rowan, because it has Will and Rowan. And so for 3 mana, you get 5 loyalty, +1, draw a card, then discard a card. It's a good thing they had a whole cycle of creatures about drawing your second card for the turn.
Yeah.
+1, target creature gets +2/+0 and gains first strike and trample until end of turn. Note, Questing Beast is a card, okay? And if you play Sultai, or not Sultai, you play Temur. Yes, that is a real thing you can do, is give trample with Death Touch, and that's ridiculous. And again, and over here, -8, you draw 4 cards. Okay. When you do, the Royal Scions deals damage to any target equal to the number of cards in your hand. It could have literally just said -8, draw 4 cards, and we'd have been like, that's dope. That's sweet.
It's a 3-mana planeswalker that draws 4 cards. It's good
yeah, it's awesome. But instead we get that sweet ability.
Yeah, I faced the second turns deck at the early access event, and I was very impressed with it. You know, the ability to take these sort of innocuous creatures like the fairy, there's the flying fairy, where it's like, you know, for your second card, put a counter on it. That thing got big. We're just doing that. And then you had the pyromancer that second turn bolt something, and like the bases that this deck could cover of we have evasion, we have a big fatty that you can't deal with, we have a way to ping off little things or even just to finish you off. You know, you had the enchantment that was like the blue red bitter blossom kind of thing, and then you had this, and like it was a really powerful engine that was very efficient.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, I've been seeing a lot of people talk about this for Modern, a lot of people talk about this for Legacy. Like, those are awesome stats that do really good things in very powerful formats.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty absurd that both of the 3-mana blue planeswalkers in this set avoid Fry. It doesn't make me very happy. Like, they both have 2+1 abilities to go up to 6 minimum, which is annoying.
Wow.
The fact that we're talking about a blue planeswalker that isn't seeing a ton of play, that is a third turn and it draws a card, is kind of absurd, but you know, there's a reason for that, and we'll get to it later, I'm sure. But I think the real trick with this card is going to be unlocking that second ability, just like you said. Is can you do it with Questing Beast? I've seen people trying to combine this with Dreadhorde Arcanist, doing some good things there. So you know, I think that the Royal Scions will have its day in the sun.
Right. It needs some time. You know, maybe Little Teferi has to finally go away before the Royal Scions goes completely nuts, but this card is very powerful. All right. Ruben, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is higher on someone else's list.
Womp womp. Aaron, what's your number 9?
January 9th, 2017 is a day that will live in infamy. I remember exactly where I was, the day that they took my sweet prince from me. That was the day that Golgari Grave Troll was rebanned in Modern. And since then, I have been looking high and low for something, for anything, to make me feel the way that my sweet prince did. And I think I found a pretty reasonable imitation of this. It's no Grave Troll, but it's a troll and it's close enough. My number 9 is Feasting Troll King. So Feasting Troll King is 2 and 4 green for a creature type Troll Noble, which is beautiful. 7/6 Vigilance Trample, which is fine. Like, I'm in. When Feasting Troll King enters the battlefield, if you cast it, which is not hard to do if you're playing green with the mana dorks and everything, create 3 food tokens. Okay. You can sacrifice 3 foods to return Feasting Troll King from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate this ability only during your turn. I love this. It's also got a neat sort of recursion ability. You know, normally they would just slap Regenerator on something or Indestructible on something. You know, it's not hard to make food. That was one thing I was really pleasantly surprised by during the early access event, and even during the pre-release, was it was surprisingly easy to make food. And there were a lot of times where you were just casting this for value. You know, I think when a lot of people looked at this, they found ways to like reanimate it, and you can certainly do that. I mean, I'm a big fan of not paying full price for a 7/6 Vigilance Trampler, but even just casting it and like playing it fair, it's still pretty good. And it doesn't matter where the food came from. As long as you've got food, this thing keeps coming back. Do you know how hard it is to deal with a 7/6 Vigilance Trampler? It's very hard to deal with. And so I'm so happy to see this card. It's going for like less than $1 right now, so it's probably not that good, but
that's wild.
It definitely has a place in my heart.
Isn't it crazy? Like, the way that it interacts with Castle Garenbrig perfectly to be cast that way, a 7/6 Vigilance Trample just somehow is now not enough? What? Like, this thing was amazing in the preview event. Like, it was super fun, and it was showing you like food has a ton of like play to it, really. And the ability to both bring something like this back or just, you know, gain you 9 life because you don't want to die and lose is a thing you can still do. And, you know, the Extended Art foil you can get for like $14 or so. I'm just like, gosh, really?
It's crazy.
All right. I think this card's great. I think it's sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on here to number 8. I don't have one because it's higher on someone else's list, but it's a great card, so I'm excited to talk about when they get to it. Ruben, what's number 8?
My number 8 is also higher on someone else's list.
It's fine.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I'll handle this. It's fine. So this is a card that impressed me for some very interesting reasons. It's rare that I can appreciate graveyard hate. But I've seen it all. I've seen containment priests, I've seen cages, I've seen rest in pieces, I've seen surgical extractions, but this card really impressed me, and I couldn't even be mad about it. My number 8 is Lockmere Serpent. So Lockmere Serpent is 4 colorless. It's a blue and a black creature type serpent, 7/7 with flash. I'm in. You can pay a blue and sacrifice an island. Lockmere Serpent can't be blocked this turn. You can pay a black and sacrifice a swamp. You gain 1 life and draw a card. You can pay 1 blue and 1 black and exile 5 target cards from an opponent's graveyard. I read this as my graveyard, like the controller. Return Lockmere Serpent from your graveyard to your hand. Activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery. We see cards like this all the time that sort of Etherling, Protect the Queen kind of style of control deck. We had Etherling, Ojutai, Pearl Lake Ancient. Wizards always releases one of Nezahal, I think was the blue one, the dinosaur. I feel like every standard, they give us like this control finisher that they want the blue decks to really latch onto. And one of my opponents at the early access event was playing this card. And I was very, very impressed with this. Me thinking, I'll just chump block it. Oh, wait, I'm playing a graveyard deck. And then they eat 5 of my things. And I'm like, whoops. But just the ability to make it unblockable, control decks are very good at hitting their land drops, but oftentimes they have a lot of land laying around. Okay, fine. I'll just sacrifice these lands I don't need, and it's unblockable. And it's, there's inevitability there. There's the ability to grind and gaining life and drawing cards. This card just does everything in a really, really unique package. And I was incredibly impressed, even as I was losing to it, which I think says something.
It's just one of the best, limited rares I've seen in a long time. It's just an unbeatable monster. I played against this in the pre-release, and it was like, yep, nope, finally got rid of it. Yep, nope.
Unbeatable card in limited for sure.
Yeah, it is a huge beating. It is. I do love to see here's how we let the control decks win. We let them draw some cards. We make sure you can actually get in there, so there's no crazy stalemates. And we give it some recursion because reasons.
It has to end the game.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of great exile effects these days, and a lot of destroy instead. So awesome. Well, we have a number 8, and that was it.
You're welcome.
Exactly. Move here to number 7. Ruben, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is a card that has the number 7 in its casting cost, in addition to green, because it is the Great Henge.
Nice.
One of a cycle of legendary colored artifacts. 7 colorless green for a legendary artifact. Mythic gets you an artifact that says tap, add green, you gain 2 life. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card. And oh, by the way, this spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So if you have, for example, a Feasting Troll King or a Rotting Regisaur or any of your other various sundry 7-power creatures, this costs just a measly green to play. It's not seeing a ton of play right now. It's seeing a play as like a 1 or a 2 of in the Golgari Adventure kind of decks, just as a way to grind out value later in the game, particularly in combination with having something like a Questing Beast or a Lovestruck Beast in play. Just a really good value green artifact that is going to be able to, make the rest of your game go longer and provide you a steady stream of cards. Also, an important card in the story of Eldraine. When the Royal Scions, when the Kenrith kids go off to try to find their dad, they go over to Yorvo's place, Yorvo being the king of Castle Garenbig, and they use the Great Henge to go chase after him. So there's some story tidbit for you.
Well, we were basically right in line. This was my number 8. Was the Great Henge. This card is really fantastic. I think it deserves to be mentioned as one of the cards I wanted to make sure hey, look at this. Look how stupid this card is. This card does everything. It's and the cost reductions are always scary and usually bad and often just get degenerate, and untapping this thing and just at the end of your opponent's turn you just gain 2 life because I can, and that's what this thing does because that's fair, and then everything comes into play with a +1/+1 counter on it, and you play the Growth Chamber Guardian, which automatically goes gets another copy of itself. It is ridiculous how this card just goes from bop to bop to bop to you lose, because it's card advantage and it's mana advantage and it's life advantage all in one card. That's what we got these days. It is spectacular. Aaron, what's your number 7?
So, I memean, that was cute. But I mean, like, if you're going to talk about like the artifacts that each color got, you could have at least led with the good one. I mean, come on.
Wow.
This card excited me in a way that most cards don't excite me. In fact, you should watch the pre-show to find out how much it excited me. I'm sorry. I know Ruben hates it when I plug the pre-show, but I had to say that. So this card was very exciting. I really enjoyed this card. And I got the opportunity to play with this card during the early access event. And it did everything I wanted it to do, and it made me feel exactly the way I wanted it to feel. It hasn't really broken through in Standard right now, but Standard kind of busted. So maybe when some of the nonsense goes out, this card will get a chance. My number 7 is Cauldron of Eternity. So Cauldron of Eternity is 10 colorless and 2 black. Legendary artifact. This spell costs 2 colorless less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard. Whenever a creature you control dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. 2 colorless and a black, you can tap it and pay 2 life, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. So I played a Dimir deck with this and Emery, and several of the walls that let you mill yourself. And so if you happen to mill this, Emery lets you get it back. And let me tell you something, Henny, I didn't pay more than 2 black for this thing, ever. It's surprisingly easy to turn on. I had a mixed bag of creatures that I was bringing back. I was bringing back Lazav's Agent of Treachery for the low cost of 3 mana. Yes. I was bringing back the Sphinx that had an hexproof, and if you had certain artifacts, who counts as an artifact, fun fact. And so this card did everything I wanted it to do, and just being able to have this toolbox in front of me that I could just sort of use to bring back what I wanted to, very Whip of Erebos, and also requires a bit of setup. Once it's out, things that die, you can't really do it over again. But if you invest enough in it, and then you say, okay, it's time to party, you can have a lot of fun with this card. And so I would love for this to be a thing in Standard. There's so many ways that you can build it. I saw people using this with Drakaseth, I think, or the red dragon, like you could reanimate that. Yeah. And so definitely hoping this becomes a thing, and it was everything I wanted.
Nice.
This card is pretty terrific. And, the reason that they pay like tens of thousands of dollars in staffing costs at Wizards of the Coast is to see what that number right there, that 10 should be. Mm-hmm. What should it be? Should it be 8? Should it be 12? Should it be smaller? Should it be more? Should it be 3 black and something? Like, who knows? Because if they get it wrong, this is not a good thing.
Horrifically badly, yeah.
But if they get it like in that sweet spot where it's fun and it's kind of cool and you can make it work if you want to make it work, it doesn't bust anything, but it's really sweet when you get it off, that's terrific. But man, what that number needs to be is something.
And they had to do that for the entire cycle because all 5 of those colored legendary artifacts have a cost reduction mechanic in them. And so thus far, it seems like they've gotten them right. So.
Yeah. I mean, the scariest one I think was the Great Henge in terms of what's seen play now, but this doesn't need much. Give us something that self mills, gives us something that goes and finds creatures and put in the graveyard. This thing gets really scary, really, really fast. All right, let's move here to my number 7, which I think I'm just guessing is very close to the Great Henge, where was my number 8 and your number 7. I think this one's really close as well for you, Ruben. Wizards these days, and oftentimes throughout the years. They will give you a card and they'll be like, this is your blank. This is the best blank that you're going to have. This is the best counter spell you're going to have. This is the best direct damage spell you're going to have. This is the best answer to planeswalkers that you're going to have. And when they said, what do the numbers need to be on a red creature to deal damage, but also be impressive enough as a creature and also make them be punished for trying to kill said creature, you get Bonecrusher Giant. Bonecrusher Giant is a red and 2 generic mana for a 4/3 rare giant. And it's got an instant adventure of Stomp for a red and a generic mana. That damage can't be prevented this turn. And Stomp deals 2 damage to any target. And its base ability on the creature itself is whenever he becomes the target of a spell, it deals 2 damage to that spell's controller. So it's a 3 mana 4/3, which is fine. The target ability is sweet. It's a 2 mana, deal 2 damage. They can't be prevented, so you can't stop that, which is really nice too. And between the 2 of them, you have one of the most efficient red creatures that you're going to see in the set, and honestly, in probably the past couple of years.
You know my language. This was my number 9.
Yeah.
Card's absurd. Card is ridiculous. Card is seeing play in Modern, everybody.
Wow.
And not just in burn decks either. This is seeing play in the prowess red decks, the decks that only have one drops in them, because this does two things that deck does or wants to have access to. It's a body, and it prevents prevention. It counteracts the preventing damage that might be relevant against protection or fog effects or any of that kind of stuff. It's a super good card, insanely powerful, great in standard as well, and also adorable art.
Yeah, I lost to this. There was a young man at the pre-release who was playing. He had the red legend that makes all your red spells do like 2 more.
Yeah.
This was terrifying. I mean, the deck alone was scary, but that plus that, it was like I was doing some math.
Yeah.
I was like, ow.
I also think it has one of the best showcase pictures or images,
Yeah.
with the big foot coming to smush, which I think is fantastic. Big smush energy. Absolutely. But yeah, this card is great. And this is just one of those, like, Wizards is saying, look, here you go. You're going to play a red deck in standard. You need 4 of this. Just go ahead and buy your 4, get it over with, trade for them, be happy.
Yeah.
Because this is going to be the stuff for the next couple of
I
years.
like it.
Which is good. I'm okay with that. All right, let's move on here to number 6. Aaron, what's number 6?
So my number 6 overperformed. I watched somebody destroy Ruben with this card. So for those who don't know, we do our early access events in shifts. Usually Evan takes the first shift, Ruben takes the second shift, and I take the late shift, which is known as Aaron After Dark. And because I usually play the most broken decks that don't deserve to see the light of day. And so I was waiting for Ruben to finish his turn, his segment. And he was playing against somebody that was running this really grindy, like mono black aristocrats deck with our preview card. The fruit, foreboding fruit. And I watched Ruben just get ground down to one of those little pencils that you see at the library. Like, remember when you used to have to write down the decimal and they'd have those little tiny little pencils. Ruben got ground down.
Aaron, please, this is painful.
All right, so my number 6 is Cauldron Familiar. So Cauldron Familiar is 1 black. It's a creature type cat, 1 power, 1 toughness. When Cauldron Familiar enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Okay. Sacrifice a food, return Cauldron Familiar from your graveyard to your hand. Do you know how easy it was to keep this thing going?
to the battlefield. To the battlefield.
Like, you ain't paying for this, Henny. So if you're playing, the oven, you can sacrifice things to the oven, make food, oven. Bring this thing back. I was in love, and I knew what decks I was playing prior to doing this event. I immediately reached out to the streamer. I was like, hey, can I have your deck? Shout out to Sleo. If you're watching, Sleo, I really appreciate you, who got me his list right away. I played the deck. Oh my God. But who would have thought that this card was something? And we saw like a Rakdos oven deck do well for like a week. And now everybody's talking about Golos. But the deck is real. And I would absolutely play standard for this deck. Like, this card, like.
First, 2 things. First of all, the idea that you have Witch's Oven in Cauldron Familiar, you throw the cat in the oven, and then you take the food and you bring the cat back. That's
the cat patties.
Wizards was somehow okay with that play pattern. That's what we want. End your turn, drain you. End your turn, drain you. End your turn, drain you. Like, that's what we do. All right.
Not too bad.
Secondly, there's one awesome player in the Mythic Championship playing that deck.
Yes. Who is it?
I think it's a Spanish or
I'm rooting for
them.
Miguel de Cruz Simoes.
I want to see more of Simoes. Yes. Kill them all.
I mean, one guy, and more power to him. I hope he does great.
Take him to the pound.
All of the combos that are in that deck, the Witch's Oven with Cauldron Familiar, obviously, but you've also got Claim the Firstborn. You've also got Mayhem Double to go with all the sacrifice shenanigans. It's a delight.
I'm in. I'm so in.
Look, I think we have to mention what Witch's Oven does to make all this make sense. Witch's Oven is a 1 mana artifact. It's an uncommon. You tap, sacrifice a creature, make a food token. If the sacrificed creature's toughness was 4 or greater, create 2 food tokens instead. So when I stole with Claim the Firstborn, their Lonesome Beast, and hit them with it, and then sacked it for 2 food tokens. Man, that was some good, clean living.
That's the best feeling in the world, to steal your things, beat you in the face with it, and then sack it to someone.
And then throw them in the oven. Yeah.
To steal the Firstborn, you can literally cook their goose. I can't get over it. I still can't get over how awesome that is.
And Cauldron Familiar, also, not for nothing, harkens back to the cat came back the very next day. He thought he was a goner, etc.
Nice.
So good.
All right. Ruben, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is another of a cycle in the set. We thought that the cycle of lands were going to be legendary, but they didn't end up being because the artifacts ended up being legendary. I have decided to choose the blue castle, Castle Ventris, as my entry into my list at number 6. Castle Ventris is a land, as I mentioned, that taps for a blue mana. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a singular island.
Jeez.
Pay 2 colors. Yeah, pay 2 colors, blue, tap, scry 2. This card I thought was going to see mostly play in 3-color Jeskai control decks and just sort of be sitting on the sidelines mostly and not do too much. Turns out it's one of the lands that goes in the Golos deck, so it's everywhere. It's also in the Simic Food deck, so it's everywhere. A grand total of 23 players are playing it in the Mythic Championship 5. Usually 1 or 2 copies, but it is a heck of a powerful ability. Being able to scry 2 every turn late in the game is very, very powerful.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. This is, part of that cycle. And then there was another cycle that you can literally fetch for. So if they bring back fetch lands and Zendikar, I'm going to lose my crap. But regardless, the castle cycle, I love Garenbrig. I thought Garenbrig was sweet, but it's weird how that's great, but not great enough.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of Castle Ventris. I'm seeing a lot of Castle Lochthwain.
Yeah.
I've seen a little bit of Castle Embereth as well in the mono red decks.
And Ardenvale's got a little bit of play here and there.
And Ardenvale is seeing play specifically in the white-green Adventures deck that few people are playing. But yeah, I mean, they're all great. They're all spectacular.
Yeah, and I love it. So I'll take a cycle where the worst one is still great.
Right, exactly.
I'm not mad at any of them. I think they're all really sweet and they did a good job with all of them.
Yeah.
My number 6 is higher on someone else's list, so we're going to move on here to number 5. Aaron, what's number 5?
My number 5 carried me at the pre-release. I was playing I have a knack for opening pools that are just so not like me. So I opened a red-white Knights deck for the most part. And that's fine because I tend to play aggro in pre-releases because I'm not the best deck builder, but I can absolutely turn things sideways. And so I built this really nice red-white deck, but I had to splash for this card because it was too good not to. And let me tell you something, this card carried me on its dead horse. My number 5 is Murderous Rider. So Murderous Rider is 1 colorless and 2 black for the swift end part, for the instant adventure. Destroy target creature, planeswalker, you lose 2 life. Fine, I will pay that. Or the creature side is also 1 and 2 black for a zombie knight, 2/3 with lifelink. When it dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. So follow along with me here. So you do the adventure, you get the rider gonna die, and it goes right back into your library. There were hands I kept. There were mulligans I made where this was the only card I kept in the pre-release, I just wrote it. I just killed your thing, brought it out. Do you have an answer? Nope. Whoop 2. Whoop 2. Yeah. The card is great. Obviously, it's a $9 rare right now. I actually opened up this really pretty version the other day, which is going for 25. And so, yeah, the card is amazing. It's like a Hero's Downfall on a stick. The lifelink allows you to claw back from games where you might have had a slower start. I just love this. I'm not surprised that it's seen play in standard, and you can't not play it. And it's a zombie knight. Hello.
This is very similar to Bone Crusher Giant. This is the best thing to answer planeswalkers. It's in the black colors, they want to put it there. And I'll also give it up to Wizards. They literally made split cards of half spell, half creature work. That's ultimately what we have. We can call it adventures or whatever. There's the split card of A and B, and you can literally get both halves. You don't even have to choose one half. Yep. That is fantastic.
I was really skeptical. I can admit when I'm wrong. And I remember when the adventures first came out, I didn't get it. I thought it was too busy. It didn't really grok. But that was one thing I learned at the pre-release was that mechanic won me over. Where there were so many games I played where it was all right, 1 white fairy, give us something flying. Oh, I have white. Okay,
I have more stuff to do. Yeah.
Right. I was really pleasantly surprised with that mechanic. So good on you, Wizards.
This was my number 8.
Nice. this was my number 6.
There you go.
All
right in there.
All there. We're like, this needs to be on that list. This card is
of course.
ridiculous. And I mean, Aaron Campbell underestimating a set. I mean, you couldn't have said something like Modern Horizons is like looks like weak sauce and is not going to do anything at all.
I remember, I'm gonna have to eat so much crow when it comes to Urza. I remember thinking like, who's gonna pay 4 for Urza? And now it's like Urza's ruining the format.
Yeah, people were like, ban Urza. Okay, all right, that's where we're at. Ruben, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is also an adventure card.
Oh.
The adventure costs 5 and is called Cast Off. And Cast Off might have the best animation of any card on Magic the Gathering Arena that has ever been made, ever. One of the first clips that went viral was Amy Zonian's reaction to the Cast Off animation early in the Early Access Streamers event. My number 5 is Realm Cloaked Giant.
Yes.
Realm Cloaked Giant is a 7/7 for 7 with Vigilance. But that's not the headline. The headline is Cast Off, which is 3 colorless, white for a sorcery adventure. Destroy all non-giant creatures. Realm Cloaked Giant, not for nothing, is seeing a ton of play in Standard right now, alongside of Beanstalk Giant, which is another adventuring giant. Because basically what you can do is you can sweep the entire board of everything except for your 12/12 giant and get in there, which is kind of awesome.
Wow. And so this is something that, because there's something really different the way that Throne of Eldraine, they have all these weird cards. They got showcase versions, they got foils, they got non-foils, and they screwed up and they didn't put the common non-foils in the packs or whatever. The showcase versions, the showcase foils, which would be the two, this is Realm Cloaked Giant and the Brazen Borrower. The foil versions of those, this is the extended art, foil version, whatever. So those things are more than 50% more rare than masterpieces.
Wow.
They are insanely rare. So when I go and I see that the rare version, the rare foil of the extended art showcase, whatever, is $25, I'm like, you guys, this card is unbelievably rare and could skyrocket in price when people finally figure out that they just made like a few of them, which is nuts.
I do want to talk about the art on that giant, though. I love the fact that he's like pulling the canyon or like pulling the knoll onto him. Like, that's so beautiful. Like, I love that art so much.
Man, and that giant hand, though, that giant hand is so cool.
Yeah.
I'm
waiting to see one be altered as Tefiti from Moana. Because that's the island. It's just like wearing it as a cloak.
Very nice.
Which would be nice. But yeah, I love both of the arts for Realm Cloaked Giant, wearing the land as an overcloak, and then of course when you cast it off, everybody goes away.
Very nice. All right. So for my number 5, quite frankly, I'm a little shocked that it's not on Ruben's list somewhere. And this is also a creature that like just blew me away in the hashtag sponsored preview event. Because goodness gracious, there's a reason. Well, I know that there's a story reason that this is legendary, but there is no reason just looking at it why this is legendary other than I almost played a second copy and then went, wait, what? That's legendary? Questing Beast is ridiculous. This card is insane. This card is just completely not even remotely. Okay, here we go. 2 green, 2 generic mana. All right, 4 mana gets you a 4/4 legendary beast. Of course, it's mythic because, Hasbro got profits, yo. Vigilance, Death Touch, Haste. Can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Combat damage that would be dealt by creatures you control can't be prevented. Where in the hell did that come from? What? Whenever it deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to target planeswalker that player controls.
Why?
What is happening on this card? Why? What are we doing? It just...
You know what this feels like? It feels like, and you guys are old enough to dig this. Do you remember when we were kids and there was it was a toy with like 3 squares and you had like the head, the middle, and the legs, and like you had to twist them to get them all to match. It feels like somebody just twisted a whole bunch of blocks and was like, here's your creature. Like, here's your vigilance block. Here's your damage block. Why?
I guess, like, they knew that Field of the Dead was going to be good, so it can't be blocked by zombies. But
Sure.
really? Vigilance, Death
It's
Touch,
like-
Haste?
Yeah, fixed.
Push.
Not fixed, but like sentence long different trample.
Not
I
even
guess.
subtle.
It's bizarre. This is apparently based on an Arthurian legend.
Yeah.
The Questing Beast, but they didn't name it something Questing Beast.
Or
they named it just
the
Questing
Beast,
or
which
the
is
Questing Beast. Yeah.
right.
This combination of abilities is bizarre and crazy and weird, and I can't wait for the day. Someday soon. Someday. And let me know if this happens at a friendly local game store near you. Someone is going to block a Questing Beast with the true name Nemesis.
Oh God.
And combat damage that would be dealt by creatures you control can't be prevented. And
It's gonna be
boy,
glorious.
that's a fun interaction that you're going to have to explain to your opponent. But yeah, Questing Beast just has too many words on it. It's just a spectacular card.
Like, this is the type of thing where you go, like, there's a great designer search, you know? And if you put this in your, like, 9 cards you got to show from your set you were making, they'd be like, get the hell out of here. What are you doing? What are we doing here? What are all
this
these
is a development
words?
card, right? Like, this is not what you come in with. This is what you left with.
This is a giant scalpel after they, like, kept moving things, and it needs to do this, and it needs to do that. Oh, yeah, it needs to kill Teferi. Oh, it needs to do this other thing. Like, what? Why? Okay. Cards bananas. Okay, that's where we're at.
Really powerful.
Let's move on here to number 4. Mine is higher on someone else's list. Ruben, what is your number 4?
My number 4, I haven't talked about any red cards yet because you talked about Magiant, right? And so now I need to talk about a red card. And more specifically, I need to talk about the 2018 World Champion Javier Dominguez and his most recent entry into the World Championship cards, Fervent Champion. Fervent Champion is 1 red mana for a 1/1 human knight with first strike and haste. Whenever Fervent Champion attacks another target attacking knight you control, gets +1/+0 until end of turn. And equip abilities you activate. The target Fervent Champion costs 3 less to activate. Just a super powerful 1-drop that has haste, so it gets in there immediately. Able to bump your other knights, including other copies of Javier Dominguez, and just a really good card. I'm excited to when Mono Red becomes playable again. I'm excited to play copies of this.
I was really impressed with the Martyr Knights deck, both at the pre-release and during the early access event, because it had the ability to go big. It had a lot of Crusade type effects, a lot of Lord effects. It had the ability to go wide. You paired it with the white artifact, where you could just poop out tokens, and then you're coming back in the game. And the deck was legitimately scary, and I was pleased to face it and to lose to it.
I've given Wizards a lot of crap about trophies over the years.
You really have.
And I recall when the World Championship was announced and they showed the trophy itself and how, it was made by these guys who make all these incredible props and weapons and stuff. And like, there was a real artistry to it. And I was like, I don't hate this. I think this is great. Someone put love and time and effort and engineering in this. And to have that to be like the sword that he's holding is awesome.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
And I don't know what guard had to change at Wizards to let us have actual world champions with their faces on Magic cards. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we've been waiting many years.
Mix-a-Lot said, the world will know. And now you get to see how the world will know.
Yeah.
So you can present them with your card.
Yeah, you can literally give your grandma a card with your face on it that says what you are at the bottom. That's amazing.
Super cool.
And it's a great card. Like it's terrific in the Knights deck. It's terrific just in multiples. Like each other copy bumps the other one. And the equip thing is like super scary. Particularly in like older formats. I could definitely see this happening. Like when your Jitte equips for free on turn 2, like isn't that seems pretty strong with a first striker.
I had the red-black artifact in my Knights deck, and whoop.
The Shadow Lance. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's bananas. So like this card just has a lot of explosiveness. I think that Wizards absolutely purposefully were like, Mono Red needs to suck for a while because it's been great in every standard format for a long time.
I mean, Chain Whirler had its day, so it needs to be not as good. I mean, there are still people playing. I mean, Cavalcade.
Are you guys going to make me
Cavalcade.
defend Mono Red?
Cavalcade's still a good deck.
It is.
Of all people? Okay.
But it's not tier 1. And they didn't want it to be. And I'm okay with that. Like, let it suck for a while, then bring it back with something stupid like another Steam Kim 2.0. It'll be awesome. But anyway, they got so much right on this card. I am absolutely stoked, and I love it. All right. Aaron, what's number 4?
There's a new meme that is going around our Discord, revolving around me and this card. It takes a lot for me to admit that a red card is good, or for a red card to excite me. But, new year, new me. There is a mountain up there right now.
Right.
You might not be able to see it, but it's there. And Aaron Campbell's a changed woman. This card excited me from the moment I saw it. I love broken things. It's currently breaking standard right now. I even ran into this in Modern in a taking turns list. Like, let me tell you something. This card is amazing. I had so much fun with it at the early access event. My number 4 is Fires of Invention. So Fires of Invention is 3 colorless and a red. It's an enchantment. You can cast spells only during your turn, and you can cast no more than 2 spells each turn. Got it? Cool. You may cast spells with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands you control without paying their mana cost. Do you know what it's like to cast a Niv Mizzet and not care about the mana colors? To just be like, I have 5, I have 6, Niv Mizzet. And then you do the Niv Mizzet thing. You look at your hand, you pluck your Golgari, your Dimir, your whatever, and you're like, 2, I have 5 lands. Colors, who cares? Just slam it. Card is hilarious. I had so much fun doing dumb things with this card. You can play it in standard right now where your mana is just irrelevant. All you care about is the number of lands. You don't care. You're not paying 2 for a shock land because who cares? You ain't tapping it. And so if you can find a way to keep gas in the tank, no pun intended, this card is hilarious. And so it is starting to see play in older formats. And I just had so much fun just rattling off the dumbest things and not even caring about how it's going to pay for them.
Man, Wizard sure does like to play with fire these days. Normally, you only get some of these these artifacts. Maybe one of those, not a whole set of those. This thing over here might be pushed a little bit, but there is so much pushed left and right in this set. First of all, super glad you mentioned this card because I definitely think it's worth being in the top 10 of the set, and I have it in mind. But also, there was this rare from Shadowmoor called Savor the Moment that was 2 blue and a generic mana for a rare sorcery that says take an extra turn after this one, skip the untap step of that turn. Guess who don't care about untap steps, y'all?
That's what I lost you the other day. Do you know how bad it feels to just have them loop in time walks where it's like... Yeah.
It's insane. And 2 free spells. Free. Literally, they just free. You don't have to pay nothing. And that never breaks anything in Magic. That doesn't completely bust everything. It busts everything.
Yeah. Particularly, I don't know if we'll talk about Fae of Wishes, but particularly alongside of Fae of Wishes, Fires of Invention is kind of going nuts.
It's just bananas. Mm-hmm. So that is exciting and fun, but dangerous as hell.
Oh, yeah.
That's where we're at. Yeah. I mean, look, I'd rather be dangerous and exciting than boring and
there we go.
Born of the Gods 2.0.
Amen.
Blarg. All right, moving here to number 3. It is my final hire. Ruben, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is also my final hire. Wow, look at us.
All right, Aaron, what's your number 3?
Modern Dredge is putting up results. And part of the reason it is putting up results is because of my number 3. So, the Faithless Looting ban stung a little bit, but we had a feeling it was coming. They had put it off for as long as they could, and then they finally pulled the trigger, and Faithless Looting is gone. And, the cream always rises to the top. We played Tome Scour for a little while. We went crawling back to Insolent Neonate, and then this card came out, and it did most of what we wanted it to do. Dredge made top 8 at the last Open this past weekend. I picked up 3 copies of this for regionals this weekend. Card is the truth. My number 3 is Merchant of the Veil. So Merchant of the Veil is 2 colorless and a red. It's a creature type human peasant. You can pay 1 red and haggle. You can instant. You may discard a card if you do draw a card. Instant speed. End step, whoop. And then if you got mana laying around, you can pay 2 and a red to get a 2/3 body. 2/3. And then you can do 2 and a red for an activated ability of discard a card and draw a card. This is great. This card is everything we wanted. A nice 2/3. I saw somebody beat a Plague Engineer with this thing. Of just whoop, there you go. And so sometimes just having an extra body is nice. Having an instant speed, rummaging effect is really cool. The fact that it has the ability to keep doing it, which is what we want to be doing. You want to be discarding and drawing. And so this card has a lot of potential. It's been a huge all-star so far. And at common, I love when commons are good enough to make older formats.
I mean, look, this, you have signposts in the road that, Magic is changing. Magic won't be the same after this card exists, whatever. there is a world where this was a tap ability. 2 and a red, discard, tap, : you did it your one time. That's what you got to do. You only get it the one time. And when I read it again.
You don't get to attack either.
Oh, absolutely not. And I was just like, wait, you can, and it doesn't matter if it's and it what? That's incredible.
Modern Dredge lives and dies by life from the loam. So we're almost always making our land drops. Like chaining this is not hard.
Yeah, and it's just that ability to just pour the mana into this thing is remarkable. Like, is a huge sea change in Magic and is a very powerful card.
It also has the corner case rule. If they happen to get rid of your graveyard, that's nice because it ain't in my graveyard. So then you pay 2 and a red, and here's a 2/3, and I'll beat you to death with this.
Exactly.
Oh my God, this card is so sweet. And it's nice to see you raving about red cards. Actually.
I know. Who am I?
I know.
Gosh,
we've reached a new mountaintop.
Wow.
Literally. Just
there you go. All right. So move on here to our number 2. Ruben, what is your number 2?
Now, listen, it was really nice that this card came out right at the time that everyone became obsessed with geese because of Untitled Goose Game. But even if it hadn't, Gilded Goose would still have made quite the impact on our metagame. It just would not have been quite so hilarious. Gilded Goose is the heir apparent to Birds of Paradise. It is a creature type bird. It is a 1 green mana, 0/2 with flying. It is rare. When it enters the battlefield, you create a food token. You can pay a green and a colorless and tap to create a food token. And you can tap and sacrifice a food to add 1 mana of any color. So basically, this allows you to go turn 1, Goose, make a food, turn 2, play a 3-drop. Right. And then for the rest of the game, you can just make value for the rest of the game with more and more and more food tokens. Just an absurd card. Tons of copies are in the Mythic Championship. It is very popular in the Simic Food deck, the Bant decks that want some value, and it's just a very powerful card, and honk.
And big honk energy, y'all. And for those who don't know, food is an artifact with 2 generic mana, tap, sacrifice it, gain 3 life. We've mentioned them, but I don't think we actually defined it the show so far. Right. The point is, this is let's step back a little bit, old man Magic style, and go. There was a point in time where Wizards was like, look, we are sick and tired of designing around a Llanowar Elf type effect of having to say, green starts with something on 3 on turn 2, and we have to make sure we know that's the thing. And then at some point they said, you know what? Who cares? Let's give you back Llanowar Elves. And then they said, you know what? Who cares? Let's give you back Birds of Paradise. And I was like, oh my God, I'll take the Gilded Goose of Paradise any way I can. I will take the Untitled Goose Game as the perfect, pop culture mix and mesh together. This card is amazing. This card is fantastic because if you're doing nothing, you're just making food tokens, which, as we've mentioned, in a variety of ways, and even on cards like Wicked Wolf, which I don't think we're going to talk about, these cards are insane and use these food tokens in crazy, sweet ways. They make permanents, they gain you life, they do stuff in other cards. Like, Gilded Goose goes a long way. You have to kill this thing, not just because it's making mana, but because it's making permanents that can gain you life and interact with other cards. That's why it's bananas.
Absolutely.
Fan-freaking-tastic. And I'll take it, Birds of Paradise any way I can get it. All right, Aaron. Aaron, what's number 2?
My number 2 has had an immediate impact on multiple formats as just a really, really powerful sideboard card. The older formats really live and die by things that cost less than 3. And so when you have a 1 mana hate card that you can just slam and that changes the way the game is played in so many ways, you can't help but look away. You can't look away. I remember the first time I saw this card, I couldn't believe it. I made the same face that they're making in that card, where I was like, what? Like, are you serious? My number 2 is Deafening Silence. So Deafening Silence is 1 white. It's splashable, it's cheap, it's everything. It's an enchantment. Each player can't cast more than 1 non-creature spell each turn. This is seeing play in Modern. Bogles, which has normally had a terrible combo matchup, is playing this card. Legacy, the 4/5 color Astrolabe deck. Storm is a tier 1 deck in Legacy. Slam this baby. I mean, yeah, they can probably win around it, but you got to make them work for it. Right. I mean, there's consistent play in Vintage and the Survival of the Fittest decks. Deafening Silence, again, another cheap, efficient way to deal with those combo decks like Paradoxical Outcome, which is now taking over Modern right now. And so this is a really, really powerful effect that we've seen before, but you've paid 3 for it on a Rule of Law, or you paid 3 for Arcane Laboratory, or, you know, you paid for an Aethersworn Canonist, which was kind of wonky. And so this is just, it's simple, it's clean, and 1 mana, like, wow.
Efficient.
Never seen this effect this cheap before, that's for sure.
Legacy Enchantress has always suffered against the combo decks, and so again, you can't really pay 3, but you can pay 1, and whoo!
Eidolon of Rhetoric is too slow for most of those, so this is a huge boon for them, for sure.
Right, things like Rule of Law, that just sort of just put the restrictions on, and it's not like it's unbelievably powerful. They can echoing truth or whatever, and then try to go off from there.
You gotta work for it.
You gotta work for it,
and for this cheap. It goes in anything.
Well, also, too, you also run the risk of them killing you before. That's the problem with the 3 manas. You could just be dead in 3 turns, but having to start the game like this, that makes digging very difficult if you don't already have the answer in your hand.
Absolutely. So, for my number 2, I wanted to pick a card that was hugely impactful. I'm guessing this is Ruben's number 3, because the Goose was my number 3, and the Goose was your number 2. And this is a card that will, again, the sort of like, we just kind of ratchet, we pass these milestones, right? We see what Wizards is willing to do and how hard they're willing to push and what they're willing to give us. And when they decided to make a fetch land, and not just like any type of fetch land, they wanted to make Evolving Wilds, but make it rare because Hasbro has quarterly earnings, and they need to explain that. And so they made one of the coolest, most powerful, clearly the most played, and is going to be one of the most played, and is going to be one of the most lauded cards over the history of Magic. Every time they reprint this card, whenever they say, hey, we put Fabled Passage back in something, it's going to be important. Fabled Passage is a rare land that says tap, sacrifice it, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. Then, if you control 4 or more lands, untap that land. It is a free Evolving Wilds that finds whatever color you want, basic land only, oh no. But this card is insane, and you should pick up your set now while they're like 11 or 12 bucks before they get to be 20, 25, 30, because once this rotates out and this becomes out of print and every deck wants it, every commander deck wants it, every of the older formats are starting to use this card as well. Like, Fabled Passage is as good as you think it is. If you haven't played with it, I assure you it is great.
I was very impressed with this card. I had a couple of these at the early access event, and I don't know why, but I imagined it being like hard to get going, and it really wasn't. And you're absolutely right. This is one of those cards that, you know, in Commander it's going to be huge. Just get them while you can, because I already feel like I've wasted too much time. Like, I was probably going to pick up some this weekend while I was out and about, and I was like, am I already too late? Did I miss my window?
I mean, there were people who, like, when Scalding Tarn was like $15, they're just like, maybe I'll pick up, maybe I'll get them in a little while. I'm serious. Get your set now.
And especially because right now in our Field of the Dead metagame, people are only running 2. Once people want 4, once everyone wants 4, there's still room. There's still room at the top for Fabled Passage.
Absolutely. I expect this to be
not on my list. Not
Oh,
on my list.
Wow. Well, okay then. Excuse me.
Quite good.
Quite good. All
Not
right.
on my list.
Well, let's see what's on there. Aaron, what is your number 1?
My number 1 is a card that I saw coming. A lot of people predicted that this card was going to be a multi-format all-star, and I wasn't convinced. I wanted to see the proof. I wanted to see the receipts, and I got to play with this card a little bit at the early access event, and I was impressed even with my, untuned, silly standard deck that I was playing. But when you put this in a finely tuned deck or an engine, it is downright terrifying. This card has had an immediate impact on Modern. It's partially responsible for these outcome decks that we're seeing right now. Jeskai Ascendancy is back, largely because of this card. This card is seeing play in Vintage. I mean, I should have known better. Blue plus artifacts, what could possibly go wrong? My number 1 is Emery, Lurker of the Loch. So Emery is 2 colorless and a blue. She's a legendary legendary creature Merfolk Wizard, 1 power, 2 toughness. This spell costs 1 colorless less to cast for each artifact you control. When Emery enters the battlefield, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard so it fuels itself. You can tap it, choose an artifact card in your graveyard. You may cast this turn. Do you know how this works with like Mishra's Bauble and Jeskai Ascendancy?
Right.
So you crack the bauble, goes in the graveyard. And then like you do the Jeskai Ascendancy thing, and it just whoop, and you can just go through your whole deck.
Oh my god!
And like
goes through the whole deck and makes Emery as big as your deck is.
0 manas. You play your Astral Cornucopias. You play your Ever-Flowing Chalices for 0, and you keep the beast going. I mean, this past weekend, Modern was full of blue artifact decks just trying to break this card, and the card's having an undeniable impact on the game. And I'm anxious to see how far people can push it. It's already feeling pretty degenerate, and I think we're just getting started.
Graveyard shenanigans plus cost reduction plus reusability.
Listen, we do wholesome things in this house, okay?
I understand. I'm saying that Emery is everything. Emery is all of the
though.
thing.
Like we're good, honest people.
How broke is this stupid card? It's got affinity. Like it's got affinity for artifacts. They wanted to really put up the signpost of this card is absolutely bananas.
They didn't want to put the words affinity for artifacts on another Magic card again, but just in case you forgot that affinity for artifacts was busted, guess what?
Yeah.
Affinity for artifacts is busted.
And then it mills yourself because value.
Because it needs to feed itself.
I mean, I was giving cauldrons back left and right with this card. It was glorious. It was just like, whoop, there's a cauldron.
Yeah.
Nobody asked. You didn't have to make it enable itself. You could enable it by playing Magic the Gathering. Yeah. And instead you can play stuff from your graveyard. That never breaks anything. This card is ridiculous. This is one of those cards, again, where we're like, we normally get maybe two of these types of cards per set. They're just like clearly bananas in older formats, going to do all sorts of crazy stuff. And Throne of Eldraine's got like 7, all right. Yeah. Fires of Invention and this card exist in the same set. Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Yeah.
Card is unbelievable. Speaking of, Ruben, what is your number 1?
Well, first, I'm voting for Strange Women Lying in Ponds Distributing Swords from Lakes 2020. My number 1, I'm looking at the stats here from the Mythic Championship 5 metagame breakdown. There were 89 total Teferis in registered for this metagame. Mm-hmm. There were 98 of another very powerful card that I'm sure is someone's number 1. There were 116 Field of the Deads registered out of 272 possible cards. But one card surmounts the rest. One card defeats them all. And it was Forest. But in second place behind Forest was 169 copies of Once Upon a Time.
Very nice.
In the Mythic Championship 5. And that is my number 1 card. Once Upon a Time is a colorless and a green for an instant. But who's casting cards anymore? Like, who pays full mana? You don't have to. If it's the first spell that you've cast this game, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Talk about cost reduction. That's 0. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card from among them and put it in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Once Upon a Time is everywhere in every deck. Simic Food, the Golos decks, the Bant Planeswalker decks.
That's just standard. Modern Amulet of Vigor. Modern Amulet of Vigor loves it. Modern Tron is fine with it. I don't think it's as good, but Amulet of Vigor really loves it. I played this in Dredge the other night, where I got to look for another Bazaar. I got to look for hollow ones. I got to look for Dredgers, because sometimes you keep a hand without one. I got to look for a Narcomoeba or something blue that I could pitch to a Force of Will. Card was fun. It was really fun. I
saw it pop up in Legacy in Hexmage Depths.
Yes.
Any deck, particularly the combo kind of decks that rely on creatures and lands specifically as opposed to instants and sorceries. So decks like Amulet Titan, decks like Hexmage Depths really are going to value Once Upon a Time. And it is a free Ancient Stirrings in a lot of decks. It is very powerful and is my number one.
I've also been enjoying all of the memes from people of like just talking about all the wrong ways you can cast it.
You don't have to cast it on turn one, everybody.
It's a lot like Fetch Lands where people just do it just to do it. And there are so many tweets where it's like, stop it, stop doing it in response to, you have no reason to do it now. Why are you doing this? So I think there's a bit of a learning curve there, but I'm enjoying seeing people rage about it.
There's a line that you have to look for in terms of like, why are you playing this like on the end of their first turn and you haven't even got a turn yet? Or why are you waiting as long as you possibly can? And why there isn't a clear answer that this is always correct depending on what you're trying to do. If you want to make sure you get a 1-drop, well, you need to play it right before you play your first land, and so on and so forth. There's so much play in this. It's a free Ancient Stirrings, and when you draw it later, it's not like it's embarrassing. It's not like you're feeling bad to play Ancient Stirrings instant speed.
Right.
Like that's fantastic. So like this card was, oh my God. I mean, part of me is like, wow, they must just juice the hell out of Eldraine because we've never been here before. So they're like, really, the broken cards are on Eldraine. You'll want to go back there because they're all nuts.
Go back to Eldraine. Yep.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what other free things they give us next time. This card was my number 4 and is a monster of a card. I mean, one of the first cards they announced for the set, they showcased and got people all sorts of excited. It's doing everything we expected it to. And in many ways, that's great. And in many ways, we hope it doesn't sort of get, I guess, degenerate, but it can't really, which is like the beauty of this card.
Right. It's insanely powerful. I mean, the number is absurd.
Right.
But
we'll see. It's rides a line, but again, that's very exciting. That's what we want in our Magic designs. Is it's right there on the edge of the knife. Almost too powerful, but just excited enough to make sure we want to go buy some more.
It's a lot like Brainstorm in that way, right? Where it's not busted, I guess, but it is in 62% of it's 62% of the possible once upon a times that could have been registered were registered. That's an absurd number.
Yes, that is absolutely ridiculous. And we have, and I'm just going to go ahead and call this as your number 3 because I know it is. And we have this card that while it wasn't played as much as Once Upon a Time.
Oh, no.
At this point, and this is insane. This is completely insane to me. At this point, it starts to look like Oko Thief of Crowns is more powerful than Liliana of the Veil. This card does everything. It does it well. It does it often. I mean, okay, let's talk about it. It's a green, a blue, and a generic mana. It's 3 mana. We just talked about that goose that can get it on turn 2. For a 4 loyalty planeswalker that has 2+ abilities and 1- ability. God, this card is so dumb. +2, create a food token. +1, target artifact or creature loses all abilities and becomes a 3/3 green elk creature with base power and toughness 3/3.
And reminder that food tokens are artifacts, so you can turn your food into a deer and beat someone to death with it.
That's a plus ability. That's a plus ability. I want to explain something.
+2 ability.
Well, no, for the food,
no,
yes.
The elk is making a plus.
The elk, I literally shut down the best thing you possibly have across the table. And I plussed it to do that.
I saw a screenshot the other day of a Merit Lage, the baddest bitch in the multiverse.
I saw a soul flare.
Right?
That was funny.
It's just the things, the powerful creatures and artifacts that have been reduced to 3/3s is really something.
And we're not even done. For -5, which you can do the next freaking turn after you make an artifact for it. Exchange control of target artifact or creature you control and target creature and opponent controls with power 3 or less. You can steal their elk from them after you make the food token with him, and you're plussing it the entire time.
You want to the best use I saw for this the other day happened in Vintage. This card is seeing play in Oath of Druids decks. Oath of Druids typically only works if you have Forbidden Orchard.
That's
and sometimes you don't find your Forbidden Orchards, but oh no, you don't have any creatures for Oath. Now you do!
And you plussed it to do that, by the way.
Allow me to find a Grizzlebrain.
Turn your mana crypt into a 3/3 elk with no abilities.
I mean, the Teamer Delver decks are now running this. In Legacy, this is seeing play. Vintage, this is seeing play.
Sure.
I mean, Standard, obviously. Sure. I don't know what they're doing with it in Modern, but I mean, my God, $35 card. I mean, this is vaulted to the top.
It's got the crown.
Top 5 Planeswalkers we're dealing with. I mean, card is ridiculous.
I mean, we are legitimately talking about one of the top 5 best Planeswalkers of all time having just been printed.
I remember when we were at the early access event and I was playing Cauldron and I was praying to God that my opponent didn't read the card because they could have turned my Cauldron inside out. And I was literally on camera like, don't read the card, don't read the card. And then they passed the turn and I was like,
how dare the freaking pot shots that were thrown at Oko when they spoiled this guy. It's not very good. Just make the 3/3 Like, are you completely out of your mind? How insanely great this card is. It's difficult to explain to you how unbelievably huge. It goes to 6. It's ultimately going to be used the next turn. Oh my God. This card is ridiculous. One of the first things I crafted when the cards were up on Magic Arena. I know I'm going to play this thing forever. Oko is nuts, and congratulations on making another busted walker because they did it.
Yeah.
I can't believe this thing has 4 loyalty to start out with. It's just unreasonable. It's unreasonable. And that is our top 10 Throne of Eldraine cards. You will see them right now on the screen for your review. Take a look at my list, Aaron's list, Ruben's top 10. We want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about, and we'll select our favorite to win a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-host. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me, and it's good to be back. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Ruben.
Honk.
Fitting. As we go to our final slide, I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-hosts, Aaron Campbell and Ruben Bressler, you guys for watching or listening, and I hope you support us at patreon.com/MagicMikes. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, do everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at twitch.tv at MagicMikes, on Twitter at MagicMikesCast, our Magic Mike subreddit, and like the Magic Mikes page on Facebook. Talk to us privately at MagicMikesPodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at MagicMikesPodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes and Spotify. Or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.